Jai Hind, and I wish all those who can hear me a very happy Independence Day. आप सबको स्वतंत्रता दिवस की बहुत बहुत बधाई, मुबारकबाद. Many years ago, when I went and when I had seen the Korean War Memorial in Washington D.C., I was struck by that little sentence that was written down, etched in a stone. A simple sentence which said, "Freedom is never free." A simple sentence which carries a lot of meaning. So I will begin to talk around this before I talk about challenges that we face in India today. Uh, when I say freedom is never free, there have been countries, peoples, races who have had to fight for their freedom. Our own country, we've had a lot of freedom fighters fight for a couple of centuries to get our freedom from colonial masters. It's fighting for freedom is one thing, and then maintaining freedom. While our forefathers fought for freedom and they got us freedom, it is incumbent on us, on you, on me, to make sure that we maintain that freedom. Now, what do I mean by maintaining freedom? Surely it's not about, we are a free country, but to be able to maintain that freedom, that autonomy, that we don't have to join any power bloc, we don't have to follow a group of nations. To be able to retain our autonomy, we must acquire a certain capability, for which always sacrifices have to be made. As a military man, as an army man, let me narrate a small anecdote to you. When I was Corps Commander in Kashmir, 4 years ago, in 2015 and 16, so 4 years ago, I went to the base hospital at Badami Bagh Cantonment in Srinagar. Um, I'm sorry for that little technical glitch, and I hope that everyone can hear me now. So I really don't know where I was cut off technically. See, now that is one more challenge. That is another challenge. Is it okay now? Yeah, thank you. So that's another challenge we just faced. Life is full of challenges. I don't know where I was cut off, so I might just repeat a little part. When I was the co-commander in Kashmir, in about 4 years ago, once I went to the base hospital. Badami Bagh Cantonment has a base hospital which gets a variety of patients. Somebody who was shot up and has got bullet injuries or wounds who were shot up on the line of control. Some soldiers had grenade splinters that they incurred in a terrorist encounter in the hinterland in Kashmir Valley. Somebody whose foot has been amputated because of a landmine blast on the borders, so on and so forth. So I went there. I would always look at patients, talk to them, learn about their operational experience and their well-being. In one of the visits, the commandant, the brigadier, told me that there is an officer who is refusing to go on sick leave. I met that young officer. I asked him, why? Why are you refusing to go on sick leave? Why don't you want to go home? Now, sick leave, ladies and gentlemen, sick leave is given to a patient who does not really require constant care, but he does require uh, time to heal and recover. For instance, a fracture. So here was this young man. His jaw was wired up. He was returning after four of his jaws had broken. He was returning after an encounter with terrorists. He's a special forces guy. He was returning with his team, and they were surrounded by a stone pelting mob. Uh, Army does not fire back at the stone pelters because we have deadly weapons. We don't have small pellet guns to scare them off. Our weapons shoot to kill. So we just take the hit and escape from that situation. So he was so injured, and when I asked him, why don't you want to go? He said, sir, I want to be with the boys. I was amused. A young man in his 20s and telling me, I want to be with the boys. His boys are veterans in their 30s, some even 40s, the trained commandos. And I was so amused by his enthusiasm. I was so taken up by his enthusiasm. Uh, I asked him, what's your age? He said, 23, sir. He was younger than my youngest son. I just ruffled his hair and said, happy hunting, son. And I told the commandant, Doc, let him do what he wants. Exactly 2 weeks later, I saluted his dead body in a casket. He died before he even lived, 23 years young. You may recall there was a hostage situation, the biggest hostage situation in Kashmir, where a 6-story EDI building was where suicide terrorists had rushed in, taken 66 hostages. It was a tough, big operation where he and his comrades rescued all the 66 civilians, those Kashmiri young men and women, but at great price to themselves. We lost 3 brave hearts. Captain Pawan was one of them. This and many more such stories, whether it was Pawan's story here or Dil Mange More, Captain Vikram Batra, Manoj Kumar Pandey, and so many more in Kargil and many other operations. This is the price that we pay for our freedom. This is the price we pay to keep our country secure and to maintain our strategic autonomy. This is what I meant by maintaining our freedom. Sacrifices have to be made. Now, how do we maintain sacrifices? I beg your pardon. How do we maintain our autonomy? Security, as a military man, as an army general, I started off with a military example. True, military is a significant part of security, but today, military is not the only angle to security. For instance, can you be militarily capable if you are not economically capable? If you don't have budgets to allocate for military, you can't be capable. There are different elements of power, instruments of power that have to plug in to make our country secure. Economy is the biggest one. Diplomacy. Today, when we have this face-off with China in Ladakh and the obtaining geopolitical situation in the world and the region, we have other countries, we have UN and other world bodies, several of them supporting us. Why? This is what we're talking about, is a diplomatic engagement. So diplomacy is another element of power. Can that work in isolation without economic muscle? No, it can't. There are other issues to it. The geopolitics, our location. Okay. So when we talk of all these things put together, we have to understand that we have to make our country strong in every aspect and not one alone. So what are we looking at? We are looking at looking at for a secure India, then we also need a stable India. Our challenges inside our country. What is meant by stable India? We, we often hear about communal riots or divisions on religious lines. We have issues between states, whether it is water or any other issue. There are issues between states. So we have to cut across all these divides to make a stable India. There are other issues which transcend over all these but are very contemporary. What happened in Bangalore last week? It was shameful, to say the least. A fake news posted on social media, Facebook, I think, because of which there was rioting. People have died. That is the power of social media. If that is the power of social media, let us use it for the good of humanity and not for such evil designs. But to be able to do that, we have to learn how to use it. When I was young, as a teenager, to listen to the news, I would switch on a radio. The radio valve took 2 minutes to warm up. And those of you who have seen or heard about it, those haven't, the younger lot, please ask your parents and grandparents. They will tell you a radio valve took 2 minutes to warm up. There were no semiconductors and chips. It was a radio valve like a bulb. It glowed. It glowed. And after that, you started tuning the radio when it was warmed up. You tuned the radio and it took another few seconds to come to the channel that you want. And it said, "This is All India Radio. The news read by so and so." Now, and there was only one channel, All India Radio. There were no choices. So all in all, it took 2 to 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes? In today's times, a sensational news goes viral in 2 minutes. There will be million posts and reposts in 2 minutes. You will do it, I will do it. But does anyone even stop to check the veracity of it? No. We just post it. We want to post it immediately, and we want to post it before the other guy knows it. Why? Media houses are ready to publish anything, ready to print anything, ready to put out on the television channels anything without authenticating fully. Why? Why this bid to outdo each other? I understand the commercial compulsions though. Okay, the point I'm trying to make is that there will be so much of fake news. There is an information overload anyway. There is so much of fake news. There is so much exaggerated news. And then we have to learn, our younger generations have to learn, have to be discerning, have to be able to differentiate between the fake and the real news, between the exaggerated and the actual magnitude, between a driven agenda. Because when we start doing such things, we give room to the vested interest to step in and drive the news towards what they want to do. We have to beware. So these are the challenges that we have to face. When we talk about defense, now apart from our security needs, we also have to remember that we are the only country. We have 2 live borders with Pakistan and with China. Both are nuclear capable countries. In fact, all 3, India, China, Pakistan, are nuclear capable countries. And we have 2 live borders. There is a LOC. There is no LOC. There is no other, there isn't example between any other countries like the kind of LOC that we have. There is a LAC with China, and we've seen the dynamics that is taking place in the last 3 months in Ladakh, and it flares up from time to time. There is a LOC with Pakistan that is on the boil for last 35 years, more than before, where we have trans-LOC firing, sometimes more and sometimes less. We have Pakistan sending across the borders, sending terrorists for their insidious designs for Kashmir. And the entire state of J&K, especially on the border belts, is on the boil. These and many more are our challenges. When we look at China, we have an LAC which is roughly 3,500 kilometers long. 3,500 kilometers of unresolved borders. Some pockets are more sensitive than others. We saw what happened in Ladakh, but this is not the first time. Time dulls the memory. In 2013 and 14, it was Depsang Chumar in the area of Ladakh itself. In 2017, it was Dolam, wrongly referred to as Doklam, in Sikkim, where India, China and Bhutan was involved, because it is at the tri-junction of three countries. And this time, it was more in Ladakh. There were issues in Sikkim earlier, but this summer, it was more in Ladakh. And it is still an ongoing issue. The disengagement process is not yet complete, though we seem to be moving towards that. When we talk of security needs of a country, are we only looking at the military muscle? Are we only looking at the economic muscle? Or diplomatic? Or some other instruments like this? And if all these are put together, is that enough? Let me point out another very important aspect which is relevant for all of us. In fact, also for those who are not in this walk of life. That is, who are not in the military. And that is our capability. When I say capability, we have to understand war fighting by military is one aspect, but to be capable to prosecute that war is another aspect. If you heard what the Prime Minister said today in his speech from the Red Fort, one of the references he made to was to this aspect of capability. And if I remember correctly, the Sanskrit moti that he made from our Shastras was Samarth Moolam Saksham. Samarth, if we are based in Samarth, if we are based in we are capable, if our base is capable, then only we will be empowered. So it's only a capable country that we will be able to exert ourselves. And what is capability? For instance, let me to explain this way. When I said that we need economy, we need budget. So let us say tomorrow we don't have an issue with budget. Let's say we strike oil in a big way and India is flush with money. So if we have money for our budget and the defense budget, we can allocate to defense needs. So can we become capable tomorrow? Can we become capable immediately next year? It does not work that way. Why? Because we have to have the capacity within us as a country to able to produce all our defense needs. Today, we import most of our weapons and platforms that we need, and we import them from other countries. It depends on which country will be able to sell to us, which country will want to sell to us, which other country will not object, why are we buying it from the so and so country. Next aspect is the maintenance and serviceability of that platform or that weapon. If you buy aircrafts, if you buy, let's say, Sukhoi 30 or MiG-21, or now we are buying the Rafale fighters from other different countries, Tomorrow, when we require, will we continue to get the spare parts and for the required for maintenance and upkeep to keep the aircraft, to keep the systems operational? This goes for every weapon system, every air defense system, everything that we buy. We have also seen that in times of a crunch, in times of crisis, when we have some gaps and we need to make up those gaps, the lead time required is not acceptable, is not viable operationally. Now, we saw that during Kargil war, when we wanted to make up some issues, some ammunition, it took us a long time to get that. It happened after Udi, when we had to make up those critical voids, and we are seeing the same cycle again now when the India-China face-off is taking place. Why? Because we are not capable of producing in our country, and when we buy from a foreign manufacturer, we have to understand that it does take a certain amount of lead time. So we are dependent on others. Let us say if the same capability and capacity was within our country, we will go into an overdrive, we will work 24 hours, we will invoke emergency to do it, but we will be able to produce for ourselves what we want. So having said that, I will just make a last point on this aspect to say that we are looking at both the private sector and the public sector. And that's where I want to emphasize that the private sector must come in, must be utilized, exploited to cater to our defense needs. That is the capability we wish to create. Besides this, there are several other challenges which are not my area of expertise, and I will not dwell on that at great length. But there are challenges inside, whether it is our education policy, whether it is our health care, whether it is our energy policy, and there is a vast range of subjects in which government has initiated some very bold reforms in the last couple of years. I will only refer to one which is relevant to me, to us in the military, and that is a very bold step that has been taken to integrate Army, Navy or Air Force to create, having created the Chief of Defense Services for the first time. This is work in progress, and very soon we will see the integration that is taking place, and the three services fighting in an integrated manner. We are fighting in a joint manner now. We will be fighting in an integrated manner soon. Having said this, let me touch upon, before I end, on a very important issue, another contemporary challenge which affects you and me, all of us, as of now. And that is this corona crisis. Not only you and me, not only the whole country, it is the whole world that is affected by this crisis, by this COVID-19. It has changed the way we work. It has changed the way we come across each other. It is changing a lot of rules. A lot of things are moving online. I am talking to you online more on this. Schools have gone online. And that apart, it has changed social behavior. It has thrown in caution. We've lost a lot of lives. There are several people who are in hospitals. So many more hospitals have had to be set up. But during these challenging times, it is also heartening to see how so many do-gooders, how so many human beings are coming out to help other human beings. So many organizations have come up, youth forums have come up, and NGOs have come forward. People have changed their jobs to start helping others. And we see that the basic goodness of man is coming out. People have started becoming more compassionate towards fellow human beings, because the corona crisis is a great leveler. It does not differentiate between rich and poor. There are some very affluent, rich people in power who have been affected across the world. There are people who've lost their lives. And then there are those workers living in conditions that don't follow the norms of health today, and yet they are not affected. Perhaps they have more immunity. The point that I'm trying to make here is that with this kind of a leveler coming in, it is good to see, and it is really required that we be nice to other human beings. The last point that I wish to make before I sign off is because wherever I go, wherever there was talks earlier, nowadays on the virtual platform, I find a lot of young men and women coming up and saying, "Sir, I want to join the army." It's a very heartening thing. They want to join the army, they want to serve the country. That jazba, that josh is heartening. But I want to say this to them. You are welcome. You are welcome to join the army, navy or air force. We need young men and women like you. But you don't have to join the army to serve the country. You're welcome, but you don't have to join. Because the growth story of India, which needs all the skill sets, we need the doctors, the engineers, the corporate guys, the IT innovators, the startups, each one of you, to drive the country forward, to take the country forward. So you can contribute, you can serve the country by doing best whatever you're doing. And if you wish to show respect to a soldier, then be a good citizen. Be a good citizen. Be a citizen worth dying for. And on that note, a Josh wala Jai Hind.